Anyway, okay, so let's actually get into the first bit of content that I came on here for. And this is not it. It's this video right here. The allegations of Sienna Mae, a TikTok nightmare from Jay Aubrey. Um, a lot of people. I've been following this very close. When I was big on TikTok, is kind of like when I first started following this, and like I've been pretty in depth with it. And a lot of people, I've have a take on it that some people find a little frustrating, and I'm gonna try to reinforce this take in a better way because I talked to my wife about it afterwards, and she's like, "I understand what you're trying to say. I just feel like you're not saying it the right way, and it's upsetting people." And either way, like people, it's not like the most agreeable take for a lot of people. I think a lot of people jump on the like, "Oh my God, Sienna Mae is the worst person in the world, and she did like a horrible thing to Jack Wright," and so like, you know, here's the thing. I think that she did do a like. I have to censor my language a little bit, like just in the beginning, just for the monetization of those videos. So just bear with me a little bit. But I think that she did do a bad thing. I think that she, I guess, lack of a better term, violated him. But I think that this is a conversation about SA culture, right? Which is a situation where you have like here's the traditional way this operates, but for the most part it's like unintentional, like assault kind of a thing. I know people are probably going to get maybe a little upset with the way that I talk about this, but let me just give you like a quick rundown. So like the typical scenario, something that you guys, yeah, her response was really bad with the whole interpretive dance thing, was like embarrassing. It was stupid. Like that was that was embarrassing for her. The typical, like a very common story. This is a story I tried to get through Akeem's story. I need to talk to him so that I can like really get through to him. But say like a guy and a girl go on a date, and let's say it's like their third date. So like, and you know, let's say, you know, the guy picks up the girl from like her house, which is a nice house. It looks almost like a gnome. Keemstar. I'm just kidding. The guy picks the girl. All right, we'll start here. The guy picks the girl up from the house, right? So he picks her up from her house. Then he takes her to, we'll say, Applebee's. I always use Applebee's because I used to love doing half off apps after 10 because, you know, they're half off. And twofers, not sponsored. Then he takes her back to his place, back to like his house, you know, his house, right? And then they like watch like Netflix. Maybe they watch Netflix and chill. Maybe he even said, "You want to watch Netflix and chill after we eat?" And maybe she was like, "Yeah, maybe," at the time. Then they're together, and he starts getting a little handsy with her. He makes a pass. You know, maybe she's cool with the kissing, but she doesn't want to go any further than that. So she's like, "Oh no, thanks," you know. And then they stop, and then like it happens again. He makes a move again, and they stop, and they make a move again, and then they stop, and then eventually we get to a point where like he makes a move again, and she gives in. Like, well, why would you do that? And which is effectively like a form of sexual assault. You know, because she puts him, or excuse me, he puts her in a situation where she feels like she can't say no, right? Because we have here, like he picked her up, he drove her to get food, and now they're at his house. On top of that, he paid for food. And everybody knows that you don't have to sleep with somebody that pays for your food. But then it's like, well, maybe he feels like she does. And now she's like, okay, this guy's being persistent. Even though they're on the third date, like obviously you could still say no. And so she submits because she's afraid. And it's a really uncomfortable situation, and it's upsetting. And one of the worst parts is that she doesn't even think he's a bad guy. That's one of the really fucked up parts. And that's what happens for a lot of you know, survivors of sexual assault. They get put into these scenarios, and I would say most sexual assault that happens, at least in the United States, is like in this form of like unintentional sexual assault, where you don't necessarily realize that you put somebody in this situation. And if you can reinforce this and educate people on this, a lot of times they're like, wow, I don't want to be that person, right? And I feel like this is the form that happens with Sienna Mae. You know, you have two sides of the story, but after looking into it, you know, you have two people who were in some form of relationship, honestly. I know he says no, but if you look into it, you know, the hype house he was in really liked Sienna, and they really tried to play up their relationship to be like, oh, are they together? Because it got them money. And so now you have a pressure on Jack Wright to maintain some form of a relationship with a girl that was his friend in his past. So he probably feels bad about like you know, really putting his foot down. Then his job is saying you should maintain some relationship. And you know, you have like a kind of a catastrophic series of events that put him in a scenario where he ended up getting violated by Sienna Mae. I don't think that she's a predator. That's the ultimately what I'm trying to say. I think Sienna Mae is kind of an entitled dickhead, but I don't think that she's a predator. And so this is something that I want to, at the very least, like talk about, because a lot, hot take, a lot of you guys have probably, maybe you guys haven't. I don't think it's, there's a reasonable likeliness that you, especially as like a young man, may have put a girl in a situation where like she feels violated without you realizing it. And that's because of the way that we talk about like sex and engagements, where we teach men to be persistent, but then also we're getting a lot of our sexual education from pornography, which gives us like a weird view on boundaries. So you don't have to like Sienna Mae. You cannot consume her, make your jokes, do all your thing. But when it comes down to an actual like educated conversation about sexual assault culture, I feel like that's where I'm coming from with Sienna Mae and Jack Wright. That's where I'm coming from more than anything else. And I know a lot of people, because when I talk about this, it feels like in some instances Jack Wright is being a little bit dishonest about his interpretation, and specifically when he talks about how like she jumped out of the car, or she broke into his house. And I know a lot of people are like, wow, I can't believe you're saying that. But here's the thing: when we talk about one of the issues in sexual assault culture is this feeling that if there was anything that might have been consensual in some capacity, it's hard to explain. Or the fact where he's like, oh, we were never in a relationship. If there's anything in the relationship that seemed like consensual, people write it off as like, oh, it's like date rape. Like, oh, well, you went on a date with them, so like it's okay that you were supposed to have sex with them, kind of a thing. And so I feel like he's overcompensating by being like, oh, we were never in a relationship. Because if he acknowledges that they were in some capacity, people will say that he's still like, you somehow, a lot of people think you somehow lose your ability to say no when you're in a relationship. When it comes to her like jumping out of the car, like I don't think that she jumped out of a car and like rolled while it was like driving. when they're breaking into his house, it seemed like she had the key. It's still a boundary issue, but like she had the it wasn't his house, it was like the hype house, and like she was able to go in and out because the hype house liked her a lot. It's just a lot of different things where you have like your back and forth. Ultimately, like Sienna Mae needed to get a little bit of a gut check, because she's horrible boundary issues. But I just don't think that she's a predator. That's really all I'm trying to say. So there's been a lot of people covering Sienna Mae videos, and now we're going to finally get into it. But there's been a lot of people that were covering Sienna Mae videos, and people are like, oh, watch it. I want you to get your take on it. But it's like, I don't really, it's one of those things where like a lot of people don't want to have the real conversation. It's really easy to dogpile Sienna Mae. And so most times when people talk about her, they talk about it in a way where like, she's the worst predator in the world, right? And it's like, like we deal with like our Gemini officials, with our Joe Robes, with our our EDPs, our Glendon Camerons, and maybe I'm a little desensitized, but like this is not. If this is if this is a predator, they're on the low end of the spectrum. Just from that's just from my perspective. So let's get into this video. And that's not a criticism on Jay Aubrey or anything. It's just like, of all the people who made a video, this is the one I'll watch, I guess, right now. I would have watched one of yours, Inamber, but I don't know if you made a Sienna Mae video.
It's Sienna Mae Gomez, and I'm going to be telling you what goes on behind my most viral TikToks.
Well, Jack Wright allegations. This situation is absolutely insane.
Oh, because I have it at like 200%. Wow, that's jarring. Okay, let's try that again.
Accusations flying from both sides.
I wanted to share what I went through.
All I can say is that I was in love with him.
These are the facts. I'm a witness.
And why is all of your evidence posted and quickly deleted? His friends are painting him as the victim, and he is the victim, but not of me. Hey guys, I'm young, and obviously I will not always get it right the first time.
Who doesn't love a good YouTube apology?
Sorry for anyone that's been hurt.
Is that like part of the apology? You have to go, guys, I'm so sad.
Continuous.
What's going on, Inamber? All right, so Inamber says, I think a lot of it comes down to her insane response to the most of it, not gonna lie. That's very true. Definitely made it seem much worse just because of how bizarre it was. Well, I think that the problem is that like if Sienna Mae looked at the situation and went like, I didn't realize I fucked up. Sorry. That, like something like that, it would have been better. But I think that she did like her interpretive dance thing, and it just didn't come off that great. I could, though, in all honesty, I could see why her initial response, outside of the dancing, I could understand why she would have the initial response of like, no, this never happened, fuck you, kind of a thing. Because this is something that she did a wrong thing. It takes a lot to realize you did something like that. I don't think that anybody in that scenario that like of what Sienna Mae, because she was on top of him when he was like drunk and like I think he had passed out. I don't know if he passed out while they were kissing or beforehand, but she was also probably drunk. And like it seemed, I could understand why somebody would be like, "That's my boyfriend. Like it's okay what I did," even though they're wrong, because nobody wants to put somebody in a situation where they feel like shit, you know. And I feel like that's part of it. So she's like, "I never did that. Fuck you. He's a liar. He's not the victim," kind of like a thing. And then she victimized herself. And that's because I think that she got quite a heavy response against her. So she had like a fucking meltdown. You know, yeah, LA YouTuber syndrome, for sure. Yeah, for sure. That's definitely true. That's definitely true.
Lapse in my judgment.
I'm not the first to say influencer apologies have become their own genre over the past couple years. I mean, how many multi-millionaires have we seen cry on camera at this point? It's hard to overlook the irony of David Dobrik turning off comments on a video titled "Let's Talk." While some apologies may lead to an accidental admission of guilt, others don't even contain the word sorry at all. Some are scripted, while others are very much not.
You're high.
Wow.
You're snorting a line of off a bad my. You know what I mean?
If you're like me and spend an unhealthy amount of time online, you get used to a pretty wide range of public statements varying from
I thought PewDiePie's apology was decent.
sincere and tactful to, "Oh my god, what are the words coming out of your mouth right now?"
I gotta keep moving forward and learning and growing.
Listen, hot take. I think Tony Lopez's apology was like okay. It wasn't amazing, but it was like okay. He did an inappropriate thing when he was 20. He was talking to like some 16, 17, 16-year-olds, a couple 16-year-olds, which was like in society is appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate, but that's a conversation to have. But he stopped engaging in the behavior. You know what I mean? Like that's one of those things where it's like, "Oh, I'm young, I fucked up." Like he didn't traumatize anybody. Hot take, you know. And then he like moves on. I don't like the guy, but I think that it was like a decent. It was a reason. It was decent enough of an apology.
You know, so many people don't teach you about how to live this lifestyle or how to be.
Yeah, see, like TikTok star Tony accused of soliciting minor. It's like one of those things where he was 20 and she was 16, and like that's if you step out of the internet world, that's appropriate. It's something that needs to change in appropriateness. But that's like that would be considered like appropriate. It's like on the edge. So, and I think he also drove in Nevada, which was like an age consent of 16 too. But that's one of the problems. I don't like it when people say that somebody was interacting with minors, because like if they're like Carson was interacting at minors when he was 19. It's like, oh my god, how old is he? How old was the minor? 17. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like it's just a lot of times they use it. They intentionally will use it. I know that there was like a sexual battery lawsuit that never came to anything. I actually talked to people who like privately who were like pushing up that lawsuit, and they were supposed to come out and talk to me, but they like dodged out at the last second. It was a little weird. But
Here in this position, but I'm learning and I'm growing.
It doesn't exactly take a PhD in psychological studies to gauge who's actually sorry and who's only sorry they got.
I should do a tier list on influencer apologies. I'd have to watch all the apologies. Thank you so much for the $2, brother. I'd have to watch all the apologies.
Got caught, as some only see their situation as more of a costly inconvenience than an opportunity to reflect inwards and admit where they might have room to grow. But that also depends on how serious their crimes are. Someone accused of a literal crime probably won't have the best of luck defending themselves holding a tangible, actual script in front of them on camera. I guess nothing should surprise me anymore. Not even the worst interpretive dance I've ever seen, as a response to one of the biggest TikTok controversies in recent history. Join me in documenting the timeline of disastrous PR choices of one of TikTok's once most promising entertainers. This is the story of Sienna Mae.
I know that this is why God and the universe have given me this.
Bro, like, why would you do this? Like, what possessed her to dance, and then what possessed her parents not to say don't do it? That's my real question. Why didn't the parents go like, you should not do that?
Platform. I preach self-love, but that takes time and patience. Now, more than ever, I feel proud of the person that I am.
It's so funny because somebody jokingly in my chat said, I'd let Sienna Mae do that to me, not gonna lie. But I think that's kind of the problem, right? Is that a lot of people think like that. And since a lot of people think like that, she probably gets the feedback loop that like her boundary crossing is appropriate because you like it, right? Like, oh, you're gonna like it. You should like me, right? You have Sienna Mae, who's like a young girl who's attractive, who's like, Jack Wright should be attracted to me so that like it doesn't like I can push through the boundaries. I think that's like another conversation to have as well, which I think is something that's usually more exclusive to girls. but some guys too. It's like, I'm attractive. You know, you should like this attention, kind of a thing. You know.
One thing you should never apologize for is securing your internet with Surfshark VPN.
Oh shit, dude, I need that.
I tried making that smooth. I don't know. Surfshark VPN keeps your identity.
All right, guys. Surfshark VPN. Go check out Jay Aubrey's video. I'm skipping through it though. Thank you for the timestamp. I'm pretty sure advertisers don't let you do timestamps on that anymore, but you're a real G.
No, yeah.
I genuinely didn't know about the situation until Mr. Beard spoke about the dancing thing. Shit made the whole go viral. Yeah, it's so funny. Me and Mr. Beard talked about this too, like in private a little bit about it. It would have been good to like have a conversation with people, like on almost like a little bit of a panel style, like pressing me back against some of the things. Because when I first spoke about it, it's so hard to talk about this situation in depth while also trying to talk about like sexual assault culture. Because a lot of people don't like Sienna Mae, so they bad faith her, which just makes perfect sense because she's kind of an asshole. I'm trying not to be too mean, but she's kind of a dickhead. But like I know, like if I had talked to Mr. Beard publicly about it, he would have been like, "What about this? I didn't agree with when you said this," and I could explain myself better. But you know, that's just life, brother.
Yeah, I am the new face of Maybelline.
You're huge. That's fine. You can come. That's not cocky. It's a fact. The new face of Maybelline.
I think there was an issue with David Portnoy too, where you talk to younger girls, like over 20. I think they're like 20 and up. But he likes aggressive physical interactions, and that's a whole conversation to have because I think he made some girls uncomfortable, and that's a whole different story.
No joke.
Sienna Mae Gomez is an 18-year-old influencer with over 20 million followers spanning across her YouTube channel, Instagram, and TikTok, where she once ranked among the top 100.
So I think that she was 19, she was 17, and the guy was 19. Right?
Biggest creators on the app. In just under 8 months, Sienna built one of the largest followings on TikTok, signed with a Hollywood talent agency, secured brand deals with a myriad of major companies, and was even set to star in a Netflix documentary focused on her friend group until a flood of serious allegations from fellow TikTok star and her once best friend. Born on January 16th, 2004 in Laguna Niguel, California, Sienna was raised by two parents.
Honestly, I think that I don't know if you guys remember during Trump, when Trump was president, when Mr. President, come back. There were a lot of wildfires in California, and the conspiracy theory was that he was testing a laser to try to like cut California off the map. I think he should. I think he should do it. I think if we elected him again, he would have just carved out California and we would have just pushed it away, let it float. That would have been great, I think. What the fuck? Play.
Parents who now each have followings of their own. Sienna hasn't been shy to include all of her family members in online activities, always making an effort to shine a light on her personal life in front of millions of dedicated followers. This openness is exactly what made Sienna famous to begin with. Her first viral video emphasizing body positivity, a theme Sienna would routinely showcase after blowing up in August of 2020. Her videos surrounding conversations on unrealistic beauty standards for.
Can I just say though, it seems weird when somebody who very clearly fits the typical beauty standard goes, guys, body positivity, we can't reinforce these toxic beauty standards. But like she would align very heavily with like, I guess, American beauty standards or more westernized standards. Like she is like, she's not fully white, but like our beauty standards are changing every day. Like traditionally, like Western beauty standards would be like very white, but like we're changing. So like it's weird for somebody to be body positive when like they're not swimming up river, you know, they're not swimming upstream. Like what does it mean to be body positive when you look, you know, when you align very heavily with the standards? $5 from Miguel, buy some crisps. You got it, boss.
For women, being endorsed by Lizzo and propelling herself into the 7-figure follower range in no more than just a few weeks. I gained 1 million views like every 3 days. It was just
That'd be like if I was talking out against beauty standards because I'm so attractive, you know.
Going so fast. From the span of August to maybe October, December, I was gaining 1 million followers every week to 2 weeks, landing a place alongside Charli D'Amelio and Addison Rae at the Hype House not too long after. At just 16 years old, Sienna had embedded herself in the fast-paced, highly glamorized celebrity culture many girls her age could only dream of, and it all happened really overnight. Posting close to 4 times a day on her 2 TikTok accounts and interacting with fans regularly in an attempt to grow her empire far beyond the limits of TikTok. It wasn't long before she began posting content with another influencer extremely instrumental to this story by the name of Jack Wright. Born on March 29th, 2003, he and his twin James grew up with Sienna, going to high school together and hanging out in the same friend group long before TikTok fame ever came about. In fact, it seems Sienna was actually closer with James, up until Jack accompanied her to an interview in October 2020. After getting along so well and becoming more close, the two began appearing side by side more frequently on TikTok. And as you can imagine, it didn't take long for young fans of the two to speculate on the true nature of their relationship.
What do you think so about Jack? His smile, his optimism, and his way of being kind to me, no matter if I'm mean to him or not.
Yeah, I think this is like when you go, this is actually, I like the presentation of this, like where the timeline, because to me this shows where everything first starts. You know, you have a situation where, like, when we're in general, when we're all young, I think that we interpret like people being nice to you as like sexual attraction or some kind of like attraction. And that doesn't justify what you did, but like we're starting here. So there was some form of a relationship interpretation where they played it up. They were friends. It was before the fame. Now they're making content together. People are speculating that pushes them together to like test something. He probably isn't attracted to her. There's like a whole thing there.
How was your first kiss like?
Our first kiss? We haven't had it yet.
You haven't had it yet?
You haven't had a first kiss yet? No.
The vlog says.
And like, in all honesty, I don't know. She's 16 at the time. It's a little. It's kind of weird that the is it weird? It's a little bizarre that paparazzi are like, oh, so you guys are 16? Why aren't you fucking? You know what I mean? Like, have you fucked yet? Like, like the energy there is interesting. You know, like it's like it, and they're like they're I guess like all young adults. They're minors, but like I guess that's not like a super weird question, but it's kind of weird. Where you're like, oh, so you guys hanging out, a boy and a girl hanging out. Why did you suck his penis yet? It's like, okay, well, why is that energy there? You know what I mean?
Something else. So you gotta get it right now. 3, 2, 1. Come on.
Oh shit!
Not unlike YouTube and Twitch, TikTok fosters a climate of
they got the paparazzi got them to kiss on the kiss. That's so weird. Imagine that's like your first kiss because the paparazzi are fucking bullying the shit out of you. What the fuck?
celebrity idolization.
I think that this entire interaction, this is like the way that you would sum up the relationship. Sienna Mae liked Jack. Jack didn't really like Sienna Mae, but everybody in public was saying that they need to like each other. So Jack like almost put himself he forced himself to like her, and then that or not even force himself, but like did things that he wouldn't be comfortable with, and then that plus shitty boundary issue from Sienna Mae equals like some kind of like a violation on Jack Wright.
Not unlike YouTube and Twitch, TikTok fosters a climate of celebrity idolization, where fans are constantly fixating on the personal lives of their favorite influencers. Take someone like Charli D'Amelio and Lil Huddy, for example. Their relationship has always been made
I can't believe Charli D'Amelio dated a black guy. Crazy, huh?
a focal point by those that follow them and the media alike, which is hardly a new concept. Publicizing the personal details of your life will naturally lead to more scrutiny by those who have nothing better to do, i.e. people like me. So it's important to be mindful when deciding what to blast online, as you can only expect it to be picked apart and analyzed by anyone on the outside looking in. All we can do is work with whatever you choose to publicize, which ties into Sienna's relationship with Jack. Fans would get used to seeing the two vlogging, dancing together, overall just being friendly. I hate talking about this, but it's important groundwork for the rest of the story. Basically, for months, fans were led to believe these two were a couple, despite neither of them ever confirming nor denying their audience's suspicions.
Are you guys dating?
They would very openly show PDA, but never outright clarified whether they were dating.
And like, this is one of those things where it's like when Jack Wright says they never dated, it's, again, I think that the reason he says that is because there's a societal pressure where like, if you consent to any part of a relationship, then you must have to consent to everything. And I think that's where we start to get lost. And that's like a general societal thing where like, oh, you're boyfriend and girlfriend. Well, then that means that like you guys basically have ownership of each other always. And like no one gets to say no. That's kind of the subtext there. And so I think that when Jack Wright said like, hey, we were never in a relationship, it's obvious that they were in some form of a relationship. And they're also young. So I don't think that it was like, let's just do a contractual relationship for the public. So you have a scenario where he's like putting himself there. And I think that's why he said we were never in a relationship, because I think that he feels like if he consented to any of it, people would just dismiss all of it. Right. And then on the flip side, you have Sienna Mae, who's like, oh, we're in a relationship. So that means that like I can kind of do whatever I want type of a thing. And that's a huge boundary issue, which is a problem. But then from her interpretation, I don't think that she was trying to like harm Jack Wright. I don't think that she hated him in any capacity, because you'd have to argue that like she hated, like disliked him, but it seemed like she liked him a lot, but she has boundary issues. Like, and part of it's because she's a famous child, and that doesn't make her like innocent, but it's something to consider when we have these real, like when we have like a real conversation about this.
Reaping the benefits of a public #couples goals relationship without that relationship actually needing to exist, as it was later revealed to be a clever front. You got to where so many people believe believed they were together, it became a huge part of their brand. But that also led to a lot of skepticism, as Sienna's relationship with her fans has always felt a little bit strained and inauthentic. At least going by the first taste of controversy she experienced in February 2021.
Young, and I'm still navigating the world and this industry, and obviously I will not always get it right the first time. I care deeply about inclusivity, and I strive to lead by example. That means listening.
I don't think that had to do with like the allegations, though. I forget
Sienna
what that
had
was.
amassed over 15 million followers when she decided to launch her own merch by the name of Confidence is Cute, a body-positive clothing line offering an assortment of tees, sweatpants, hoodies, and beanies with phrases like "Everybody is beautiful," "Stop looking."
Just hot. It's not true, guys. Not everybody is beautiful. Okay, I'm just. Some of them are a little yucky, you know. You think if she apologized normally, people wouldn't care? Maybe. I think so, that she would have gotten less heat. But dude, here's one of the things. It's one of those things I think people. You ever have a fight with like a family member, and everybody from the outside saying that you're wrong, but like you guarantee that you're right, and then it takes like a year later you say, and maybe even parts of what you're saying are kind of right, and then like, but it's like, let's say you're like 30% correct, right? And then a year later you go, oh, fuck, like it hits you. And I think that's most people's like normal, like instant response. It's like it takes a long time to like, fuck, like I fucked up this. And so that's probably why her apology was dog shit, because she probably didn't think that she was in the wrong, because she does, and she probably still doesn't think that she did anything wrong. She probably, at this point, has victimized herself so much that she'll never understand what she did was wrong, which is obviously like a net loss outcome.
Looking at my roles, graphic design is my passion. I'm sorry, I'll be nice. Definitely a good message, just not the best design in my opinion. Though they were pretty well received by her audience, up until a new selection dropped, sporting the caption, "Did you eat today?" which was mocked across Twitter and TikTok for making light of those with eating disorders and food sensitivities.
It's so stupid, because that's a question. People are like, did you eat today? Like that's like a common question for people who haven't eaten. I don't know why this would have blown up the way that it did. They should have, like, I don't think that she doubled down. She should have just been like, hey, for some people with eating disorders, which I don't have, so I don't understand. That's what she would say, because it's like, you know, this is an important question for people, and it's a very important reminder for some people who don't eat as consistently as they need to. And so we made these "Did you eat today" shirts in like a positive protest of that. That's all she needed to say. The problem is that like these content creators are virtue signaling. Like they don't understand anything that they're doing. So she doesn't know why the question, "Did you eat today?" can be very positively impactful for people. It's just a thing she heard on TikTok, and she's like, "That's quirky. I'm gonna do that." And then here we are, right?
It didn't take long for Sienna to respond on Instagram, where she doubled down on the design, writing it was not meant to make fun of / glorify EDs / be harmful or ironic in any way. The question is hoping to encourage / check in with
okay, so actually she did have a good response.
If they actually ate. Not liking this design is different than misrepresenting the meaning behind it.
Then she had a good response. Okay, there you go.
Continued. Of course, since no retraction of the merch had been made, people weren't having it. And as the situation began being picked up by the appropriate news and drama outlets, Sienna finally removed the product.
Well, that's kind of shitty, because I think that she was kind of right. It's so interesting, because I think that what happened is people don't like Sienna Mae. And so they went after her because it felt like an easy knock on her. Because that was a decent response. Like, following the backlash, Sienna Mae defended her merch on Instagram is now a deleted post. She's written, the "Did you eat today" question is not meant to make fun of or glorify EDs or be harmful or ironic. The question is hoping to encourage, check in with people that if they actually ate. That's a good response. The post continued. This question is about expressing compassion and care for those who are seriously struggling. Not liking the design, which is okay, is different from misinterpreting the meaning behind it, which we are hoping to clarify now. We created the design with love and positivity in hopes of uplifting others and asking hard questions. We stand behind the true intentions of this 100%. That was a good response. That was actually a good response. Like, so, okay.
Situation began being picked up by the appropriate news and drama outlets. Sienna finally removed the product and issued a public apology.
TikTok controversies are so weird. I thought T channels reach a lot, but TikTok is insane. Yeah, yep, it's fucking crazy.
Said, "I have heard you and I have removed the merch. I will still be donating all of the proceeds of this line to Teen Line."
She should have held firm.
which is a place that many teens can reach out for help. I care about you.
Bro, TikTok is horrible. Can I tell you something I never? When I was on the TikTok commentary community, it's horrible. It's exponentially worse than like YouTube. Like YouTube, I haven't had any real issues with it other than Death Noodles being a dickhead. TikTok is vicious and it's brutal. And dumb fuck ideas spread like goddamn wildfire on there. And there's no like mature individuals on there that are like, hey, this isn't right. I did that a little bit, well, quite a bit on there. But like, it's just it's a nightmare. Like, in all honesty, if you guys remember the Charlie D'Amelio thing where she was getting shit on because she did like a video on YouTube where they tried to feed her snails and she didn't want to eat it. Everybody was shitting on her relentlessly. And I'm not trying to jerk myself off, but like I was the only, like I made a video that was like, why the fuck are you guys like melting? Like have molding over this? Like she's not wrong. Who cares? And then like I got a few million views, and then all of a sudden people were like, oh maybe a 16-year-old with an like a little eating disorder. Maybe it's okay that she didn't want to eat a fucking snail. You know what I mean? Like it's like holy shit. Like people are fucking insane. It's crazy, man. TikTok is brutal. It's brutal, bro.
And thank you for speaking up. Be nice to someone today. We're all struggling with something.
Now, I'm not
Don't be nice to anybody today.
here to question Sienna's true intentions behind an ill-advised merch drop from a year ago. I don't think it would have been beneficial to Sienna's bottom line to ironically poke fun at eating disorders after building
Probably
a platform
not.
on body positivity and acceptance.
I think that's the issue. I think people were like, why the fuck is she talking about body positivity when she doesn't know anything about it? She's just a young girl that's like attractive, societally speaking, because I don't find her attractive. Okay, so knock it off. And people were like, what the fuck is this? What is she doing talking about it? You know?
To me, what stands out the most in light of her recent allegations is the way in which she responded to the backlash. After a failed attempt to double down in the face of her critics, Sienna capitulated with a strongly scripted apology, possibly written by a team, with a heavy emphasis.
Honestly, I mean, this sounds so weird, but it's so interesting because TikTok is so toxic, but TikTok also works to get rid of commentary. The problem is that really commonsensical, solid commentary channels, people actually tend to gravitate towards those people, but they're trying to remove those people in general off TikTok. But somehow they think that removing the commentary sphere will remove commentary. But now you just have a bunch of people like, ew, this is gross, and that don't have like any established credibility, and people just like, it's like a fart in the wind. They go whatever direction it blows. You know what I mean? That's all it comes down to. And so like there was no like, who the fuck's gonna listen to like a 16-year-old girl when she says something like that? Nobody. But if you had like commonsensical voice that was like, this is stupid, all of a sudden things would probably change more. So it would be better if they didn't try to like assassinate commentary on TikTok, even though it is toxic as fuck. But
emphasis on her age and inexperience. Like, come on, you did not write that. Sienna attributes this mistake
Probably
to her
not.
youngness, which might be fair in this one instance. Though I think you'll see
Probably.
a little later, this defense can only go so far. Unfortunately, there are
I don't know, man. I was dumb as fuck when I was young.
some parallels between this response and her various responses to Jack Wright, which we will get into in a little
They were
bit.
pretty
To me,
rough,
it
yeah.
just screams inauthentic. But it doesn't really matter what I or any of us think anymore because this happened last year, hardly making an impact on her following whatsoever. A few T-channels covered it, but ultimately everyone moved on soon afterwards. So with this PR win, I have to assume Sienna must have felt a new air of confidence. After all, it was around this time that Netflix was filming for a Hype House documentary, centering on all the
And they were really heavily pushing the relationship between Sienna Mae and Jack Wright. Again, like introducing another, like basically societal aspect of like forcing or encouraging Jack Wright to do something that he probably didn't want to do. Because that was a huge part of the show, was like really teasing that so heavily. Imagine being Jack Wright and you're like, I don't like this girl, but they keep telling me I got to. So, and then all of a sudden, like you're almost assassinating your own boundaries just to stay with this person until you get to a point where you're like, fuck, like I hate this and I'm so upset. And you have so much like frustration and anger pent up, and like I can't do this anymore. And I feel like that was the experience of Jack Wright.
chaos surrounding the biggest
Problem is, most common sense people have been banned at this point, and the community on TikTok for the most part will never go to YouTube to watch a nuanced take. Oh, 100%. TikTok is fucking abysmal. It's horrible. Dude, can I tell you, when I got banned off of TikTok, best thing that ever happened to me. Like all of a sudden, like my fucking brain like started to recover. It stopped, like it's like, and then like I'm doing a lot better on YouTube, you know. I'll probably never do as well on YouTube as I did on TikTok, like number wise, but like I'm okay with that because yeah. Having 2 million fucking followers on TikTok is the equivalent of having like 20,000 on YouTube, maybe. You know what I mean? If that, it's so hard to make the switch, and TikTok is not like there's no longevity in that platform whatsoever.
teen stars in the world as they try to navigate the Hollywood scene and drink Bang energy. Though unfortunately, Sienna wouldn't be joining Charlie and Vinny Hacker on Netflix anytime soon. Neither would her acquaintance Jack Wright, thanks to a series of reputation-defining allegations that changed the trajectory of her career starting in May of 2021.
A post from a friend of Jack Wright.
Oh shit! Hi Nabber, you're in the stream and you're in the fucking video, dude. What the fuck?
Came out about Sienna Mae.
Holy shit!
A large amount of serious allegations.
On the 31st, Mason Rizzo, a friend of Jack's since kindergarten, published the following statement to Twitter, reading, "I struggle with seeing a girl praised after telling my best friend to kill himself and assaulting him numerous times after he set boundaries and then repeatedly wonder why he doesn't like you back. She also has a history of verbally abusing people in high school and in LA. She prioritizes the growth of her platform rather than the positive message she represents herself as. Followers should not be an excuse to get away with abusive behavior. You guys all deserve to know the truth about her." Now, this may not have gotten so much attention so fast had it not been retweeted by Jack's twin brother, adding, "This is why I couldn't just let it go and stay out of it," before retweeting another girl alleging Sienna was also known to body shame, despite the positive, uplifting stance she had taken online. This was obviously incredibly noteworthy for anyone on the outside.
Yeah, I think that was in her school. She would be like, "Ew, you're ugly." Like, obviously, she had no personal connection with fucking body shaming in the way where like she was ever victimized by being body shamed. You know what I mean? That's why it felt disingenuous.
These claims were being backed up by Jack's own brother, who belongs to the same social circle as Sienna for the past several years. These posts sparked a fire of online speculation, of which Sienna fanned the flames with her own.
It's so interesting though, because like, I know this is really fucked up. This is one of the problems with like social media and like these really fake interactions, because they all acted friendly in public. And I wonder if they acted friendly in private, or if they kind of just like didn't really do very much about it. You know what I mean? It's hard to it's difficult to tell, because like when they're online having interactions with each other, like, "Oh, I really like Sienna Mae," and then all of a sudden in private, do we know if they were actually, do they know if they were actually speaking out against her, or is this just like what they were saying? We don't really know. It's this like, I guess, duplicitous situation. Like, you guys should be standing firm in real life and on your platform. But if your brother was getting like violated by Sienna Mae, which I don't doubt, why make content with her? Why wouldn't that, like, you know what I'm saying? Because I wouldn't. Would you do, like, think about that. Would you do that? No, of course not. Like, if you'd be like, "This is disgusting. I don't want to interact with this person at all." And so my take, a lot of it, this is the thing. I remember watching the video where she like gets on top of him. My initial take, and this is the feeling that I still really get, is that they were in a situation where she was violating his boundaries, but he knew he was uncomfortable, but like none of them knew. It's so hard to say. None of them would really like stop it, because none of them knew that it was bad. They knew it was uncomfortable, but they didn't realize it was bad, because we have this like societal idea that if people are in a relationship, then like everything's fair game, where like marital rape is an okay thing to do somehow. You know what I'm saying? It's not. I mean, they weren't married, but you get like the fundamentals of the thing I'm saying. And then they realized it and they're like, "Oh my God, she's a predator." And it's like, well, you didn't know it before. Same thing for her. And it's a hard conversation to have. But if you talk to assault survivors, a lot of them will say that the person that assaulted them, they don't think that they're bad people, which is really fucked up, because like they're people who made a mistake. And if those people knew that they put them in that situation, they would probably be upset. That's not everybody's experience, and I'm not trying to make assaults like people who've like violated people seem like good people. But like when we talk about sexual assault culture, we talk about it. A lot of it is like unintentional, where people don't realize that they're violating a boundary, and that's one of the hardest things to talk about in the correct way. We all know like what is and isn't sexual assault when it's like yes and no. We're all smart enough for that. It's the nuanced field which this would lie under, where we don't really understand, or where we need to have like better conversations about it.
Own response to the allegations immediately after they were made, taking to Instagram by writing, "Friends fight and relationships sometimes change, but allegations of a criminal act are not to be thrown around loosely. Making an untrue sexual assault claim is never okay. I'm beyond saddened by this situation. In order for us all to move forward, I will be taking this offline with Jack. Thank you to all who have reached out with love and concern." As you can imagine, this wasn't received as well as she may have hoped, and was deleted soon after. In fact, you won't find it.
I mean, that's probably the way that they should have handled it, is in private, to be honest with you.
Of these posts now, if they've all been taken down. Amazing, clarifying that Sienna and Jack's families had come to the agreement that this would be settled offline and away from social media. Except we both know how the internet works. This was out in the open for good. By early June, Sienna had made what would become her first of many public responses on camera, in which she unequivocally denied any and all allegations made by Mason and co-signed by James.
Jack never confirmed or denied it, which makes the situation even worse because he never denied it knowing that is not true. The allegations were made in a tweet by Mason of sexual assault. Let me be clear one more time, I did not sexually assault Jack Wright.
Sienna goes on to say the two never had sex, which was never a part of the allegations, but I digress, and even claims—
well, I mean, for a kid, they would probably shoot to sex when it comes to sexual assault. Like, I wouldn't expect children to have any level of education on sexual assault culture, you know what I mean?
those in her life are using her best qualities, i.e. the way she loves people, against her, to make her out to be something she is not.
It's so crazy to me how once a relationship or a friendship has ended, people will turn your very best qualities against you, which I know my very best qualities are the way I love. And that love and that passion is newly regarded as overwhelming, that passion is now newly regarded as possessive or desperate. That is so frustrating to me. And
well, they had like a toxic— this is one of those things where, like, I remember, like, I think we've all been in a bad relationship, and like I've been in a bad relationship where, like, when you're in the relationship, you think things are better than they are. It's maybe you're like almost fucking convincing yourself that they are good. And then once you end the relationship, like months later, like, holy fuck, this person was horrible. And I think that's probably what happened. They ended like whatever formal relationship they had. Maybe even if the relationship was like a friendship, whatever, they ended that. And then all of a sudden it was like, holy fuck, when I look back and I reflect, this is probably from Jack's perspective, Sienna was horrible. You know what I mean? And I've been there too. You know what I mean? And like from a subjective perspective, I hate that person. But from an objective perspective, you understand that, like, okay, like there's, you know, if they were, like, it's so hard to navigate the specifics of like your relationship that was probably toxic, because they both would like get jealous over each other when they would go to parties. They were both fucking insane.
And after everything that I did for him, and after all the love that I gave him, I feel so stupid. That's the only way I can explain it. I just feel stupid.
It's important to note that most of what she says here is completely unrelated from what Mason had alleged in his initial statement, instead using this opportunity as a way to clarify their relationship off camera.
Well, I think that's wholly relevant. You generally build a picture around what's going on there. You know, when it comes down to like a scenario of like violated boundaries, of course you're going to want to set the stage for like how they interacted. I don't think that this is irrelevant what they brought up. I think that it makes the most sense. iNabber asks, do you think a major problem with these influencers are that they were 16 years old when they gained millions of followers? I probably would have been awful at the responding to the controversy too. Oh, 100%, bro. I was like fucking 29 when I got famous. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely. It's difficult to deal with it as an adult. I couldn't imagine being a fucking kid, you know, at all. Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge issue with it. Kids are really fucking dumb in general. That's a huge problem. They make a lot of horrible fucking mistakes.
And even paint Jack to be a manipulator, as she claims.
It was real online, and then it was sometimes real offline, and sometimes it wasn't, which was so misleading, and honestly just such a mental mind for me.
During the
that doesn't paint him out to be a manipulator. That seems like genuine. That's probably exactly what happened. I don't know why I don't think that that's manipulative. I think that that was probably her real experience. And I think, again, it's because Jack Wright probably liked her as a friend, but everybody in like the paparazzi's field, everybody in their own sphere was like, you guys should date because it would be really good for money. And then he's like, fuck, my hype house, my job is telling me I should date somebody, and they're my friend, and I don't want to upset them, and I want to be popular. And so I'm going to do it, but then I'm not going to affirm it because I don't want to do it. But then, you know what I mean? And it's like, that doesn't make him seem manipulative. That makes him seem confused because he's also a kid. You know what I mean?
Latter half of the video, Sienna makes the shockingly bold assertion that although she did not abuse Jack, someone else did.
I'm so disappointed in you and the people around you because they are letting you misplace your trauma onto me, and I'm so sorry that this happened to you. It's not my place to speak your story, and I will not discuss this any further, but it's not your place to allow false allegations to be spread about me when we both know that I was not the one who did this to you. I was there for you through the aftermath and all those depressive nights and the nights that you had no motivation, and I would go and I would clean your room and I would get you food and I would be there for you as a good friend because I care.
I remember her saying this. I don't remember if it ever materialized into anything. I don't.
Heard about you so much. I'm so sorry that this happened to you, and I really hope you can get through this.
Doesn't name any names on account of it being not her story to tell, but still condemns Jack for allowing his friends to spread false allegations at her expense, before finally strikingly challenging Mason or anyone else to post the evidence of her abusing Jack, since she was so sure it didn't exist. And well, that's the part that really didn't age the best.
Whatever evidence you think you have, either post it or send it to me and I'll post it, because you have nothing.
You really censored that?
This video is from November 30th, 2020.
And this is one of those things, like, okay, so let's just take this situation here and let's isolate it and let's remove all like everything outside of it. Okay. We have a situation here of like two people who are in some weird relationship. They're in some form of a relationship. He's drunk and passed out, and she's not. And she's on top of him kissing him. They're both drunk. We don't know. This is purely speculative. We don't know if he was conscious beforehand and then passed out while they were kissing, or maybe not. This is like sexually violating. Like this would be considered sexual assault. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people looked at it and go like, this is gross. And it is. But it's like one of those hard things to talk about where it's like, there's a spectrum of sexual assault and like, this is shitty. And this would make anybody, I think, well, this would make a lot of people feel very uncomfortable if they were in this situation. But this isn't like this one incident wouldn't be like, I don't want to say like not traumatizing because like it could be. But like this situation isn't indicative of like this horrible predatory thing. This is like one of those things where something like this, like a violation of boundaries would consistently happen with Jack Wright, which contributed to like his frustrations. And of course, part of it, people like basically forcing him to, encouraging him to stay in the relationship. And this is fucked up. And then the friend got up and walked away. Cause I remember this too. People like the friend got up and walked away. And, and it's like, okay, a lot of people they were like filming it. This happened 7 months before they released it. And it's like, why? It's like, this is where I come with everybody around them seemed to, if this was consistently happening where she would get drunk and then she would do this, I did question, I'm like, why didn't the people around them stop it? Apparently he stopped it here. But like, if this is happening a lot, why didn't they stop it? And I'm not saying that because like they're horrible people. But it's one of those things where it's like they probably knew it was uncomfortable, but didn't realize that like this was wrong. Does that make sense? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's difficult to express everything I'm trying to say, which is why sometimes it comes off as weird. But like that's what I'm trying to get down to. It's like people not understanding boundary issues, even the people around them. Because like if your friend was getting violated in front of you, would you just sit there? No, of course you'd stop it. And that what I'm saying is that they probably didn't realize that this was wrong. You know what I'm saying?
This video is from November 30th, 2020.
On June 3rd of 2021, this short video taken in November was posted by another friend of Jack's, seemingly depicting Sienna straddling an unconscious Jack Wright, groping him and kissing him on the lips while looking passed out. The guy.
And then again, like if you're in a relationship, like, see, if this was my relationship with my wife, and a lot of adult relationships, a lot of adults would look at this and go like, I don't care. Because like if I was passed out drunk and my wife was doing this, that's consensual. Like, because we have a very healthy relationship. If she was passed out of this, it would be considered like consensual because we're adults that have like established boundaries. And so that's the societal perspective on something like this for the most part, which isn't right 100%. That's just the type of perspective that leads to like marital sexual assault. But like, that's one of those things where if you're a young person and you're trying to imitate adult relationships, which young people do all the time, they try to imitate adults. Part of it's like, oh, this is appropriate. I'm allowed to do this. And that's what she thinks. And then that seems to be what everybody else thinks to some extent around them because they didn't stop it immediately. And this apparently happens all the time and they didn't like stop it. You know what I mean? Like there's just a lot of depth to this. It's like really fucked up.
Next to him, who posted the video, got up after feeling uncomfortable, but went back to pull Sienna off once he realized what was happening, posting this alongside the clip in an effort to further support the claim that Jack was in fact asleep, or at the very least incapable of consent during that time. Being definitive proof of assault in the eyes of some, this video remains a heavy point of contention today. Sienna has since made the claim many times over that he was—
I don't think it really matters. I mean, this is something to understand. Like, it doesn't really matter the specifics. What actually matters is if Jack felt violated. That's like a lot of times all it really takes for like a sexual assault to happen. Somebody felt violated and they didn't, or like, and they couldn't say no, or they did say no and somebody went ahead anyway, right? Like that's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot. So like that's where we're facing here, and you know, his uncomfortableness with expressing that instantaneously doesn't make it okay, you know.
Was not unconscious and completely consenting as it happened, as she outlined in yet another statement not long after, something Jack himself would go on to dispute.
The Hawaii incident happened where I was passed out unconscious almost like the whole night. She got on top of me, took advantage of me, groped me. I'm so glad they pulled her off of me, and honestly I'm glad that they have evidence. After Sienna found out about the video, she said sorry. She said if this got out, she would be done. That is horrible, and she's working on boundaries.
Jack was a victim of sexual
If that's what she said, it sounds like she realizes that she's shitty. You know, I mean, that doesn't make it okay. Like, if I fucking smack you in the face and I was like, sorry guys, I'm working on my anger, it doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it okay that I did that. But it's good that there's a level of understanding to it.
Got out, she would be done. That is horrible, and she's working on boundaries.
Jack was a victim of sexual assault, but not by me. And I am a victim of continual attempts to cancel me and slander my name with false claims. It will not work. I'm here to clear things up and provide all sides of the story because I have been labeled.
Well, she may not have seen that.
If this got out, I'm glad that they have evidence. After Sienna found out about the video, she said sorry. She said if this got out, she would be done. That is horrible, and she's working on boundaries.
Jack.
So the only reason I'm showing that is because I know that video happened, I think, 7 months before this, my understanding. And she didn't see, I don't think that she saw the video until it went public. So this thing that she's saying now is still consistent with what she said, with what Jack said that she said, right? It's like one of those things where like you swear you didn't do anything wrong and then you see something and you're like, holy fuck, I was wrong. You know what I mean? And maybe I'm good faithing her, but like just based on the timeline, right?
Jack was a victim of sexual assault, but not by me. And I am a victim of continual attempts to cancel me and slander my name with false claims. It will not work. I'm here to clear things up and provide all sides of the story because I have been labeled as a sexual assaulter.
Right out of the gates.
Also, there might actually be another sexual assault on Jack Wright. Like, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. Like, that there could just be additional shit there, you know?
Sienna's demeanor is stronger and more aggressive than before. She comes off less concerned for her friend who she just previously said was sexually abused.
I think that was in the original round of videos. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Maybe I got the timeline wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was in the original round of video. I'm pretty sure this comes... Yeah, this was 6 months prior, so I think this was before that video came out. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I have my timeline wrong. I don't fucking know. Maybe I have... Do I have my timeline wrong? I don't know if the release of that video came before or after this. I have to look back. I'll probably do that in a second.
And more frustrated with how the situation has affected her, reiterating a desire to take things offline.
I have tried multiple times to take this offline, and I am continually undermined by Jack and his inner circle. Jack has not spoken on the situation, and his friends keep dropping cryptic and non-specific information.
Using Jack's silence as a means to absolve her of the allegations made by his friends, and outright accusing those closest to Jack, including his own twin, of twisting the narrative against her, using air quotes when referencing the video in question.
The initial tweets, as well as the video that I'm talking about right now, have been taken down.
She then goes on to dig up older clips of them being very touchy-feely with each other in the past, as if these would have anything to do with the allegations being made. Just because he may have consented in these examples on camera, absolutely it does not mean he was even in a sober enough state to consent in the video she's so willing to write off with air quotes.
Yeah, again, I think that this is like a societal conversation about sexual assault culture and like how people are uneducated on it.
You can see here and anywhere online, Jack and I were very touchy-feely with our friendship. This is the way that we interacted with each other, and it is in any video you go watch of us. Please, and I encourage you to go watch my recent YouTube videos featuring Jack, our recent TikToks. You will see that this behavior was normal. Online, we touched each other, kissed each other, we were playful. Jack kissed me, and I kissed him. Within the boundaries of our relationship, this was normal.
Definitely not doing much to sway people in her favor. But let's look at the video itself.
Whatever their relationship was at the time.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, okay. I think that when she responded with that information, that I'm not. I gotta keep looking into it.
Obviously, this was not right, so I went back and took Sienna off of Jack. Not to mention, when I got closer, I noticed her right hand inappropriately touching his crotch. She was shocked that I pulled her off.
I think that she did just that video had just come out. Okay, so she was directly responding to that.
And she kept trying to justify what she had just done. I talked to James and Jack the next day about the situation that happened at night. And James said that happens all the time.
The way that Jack's friend narrated this video, I admit, looks so weird and looks just like real. But like my last video where I showed comments that were resurfacing and then provided a backstory, not everything is how you see on social media.
Sienna attempts to defend herself by first going after the video's presentation, claiming it was edited maliciously to make it seem more nefarious than what it really was.
The clip of me kissing Jack, he is also kissing me. I was looking at him face to face. He was kissing me back. Lachlan claims that he was unconscious. If he was unconscious, why did his arm move when you got up? And also, why was he kissing me back?
She asserts that he was fully awake and kissing her back.
I mean, like, this is the thing, is it's quite possible that he was really fucked up drunk and like he was kissing her and like didn't even realize it. You know what I mean? And like to her, that was a signal that he was conscious, which it doesn't mean that he's conscious. You know what I mean?
to the way Jack's arm moves when his friend gets up from the couch. Now, maybe Sienna isn't sure how gravity...
You think that she's embarrassed? I think that she thinks that she's right here. I don't know if she knows that she's wrong. I think that's the big problem, is that like there was no conversation about how like she could have been wrong without being a bad person, if that makes sense.
He works, but I think it's pretty clear to me, at least, which I have to say so I don't get sued, that his arm only moved because the guy stood up and disrupted the way he was positioned. He doesn't move beyond that, and yes, it's a short clip. There's not a whole lot to go off, as Sienna is eager to point out for herself.
You claim in your video that you hear kissing noises.
I started hearing kissing noises and I peeked over my shoulder and it was exactly that.
We were kissing.
Well, you know, if I kiss somebody and they don't kiss back, you could probably hear kissing noises. But either way.
Lachlan also claims that my hand is on Jack's crotch. While it is not. My hand is very visibly on Jack's thigh, upper thigh.
Okay, one, it is not very visible at all. I'm not showing the clip uncensored because it makes me uncomfortable, but her hand is behind her leg, so it's kind of hard to tell whether it's on his crotch or his thigh. But regardless, touching him while he's unconscious is still bad. And two, you can still make kissing noises even if the other person isn't actively kissing you back. It's clear Sienna doesn't have the strongest defense team if her rebuttal is, well, this.
If Jack was being sexually assaulted in this moment, James, why did you record it? James, you are Jack's twin brother, and I know that if
it's a decent point, bro. It's actually a decent point.
My brother saw me being taken advantage of, he would pick up the person on top of me and beat them to shit, not film it.
But I mean, that would be a horrible look. They're trying to incriminate you, not themselves.
But that's the problem. Is like, yeah, that would be the normal response, which is why I feel like they just didn't realize that it was as wrong as it was. It doesn't make her right, but like they filmed it and then they say like, oh well, we used it for evidence. They held it for 7 months. Do you really think it was evidence, or what's more likely is that he filmed it because maybe he thought it was weird and it would be a funny Snapchat story? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, man. It's the uncomfortable conversation to have.
To me, Jack's twin James took this video for his brother's own good. She then goes on to rapid fire a bunch of points that again,
I disagree. Maybe it's something in the middle. Maybe he did it. He took the video because he's like, this is weird. I want to have this in case. Maybe it's because he thought it was weird. Maybe it's because he thought it was funny. We don't know. But he didn't stop it. You could have recorded it and then stopped it. The other friend stopped it, but he didn't stop it, which suggests to me that like maybe that friend was just more educated on like how this was wrong, and Jack's brother, whatever the fuck his name is, didn't realize it, right?
Really don't matter as far as what she's being accused of.
This was also in November when we had first just started to kind of ease our way into relationship, not relationship, defined, and you were introducing me as your girl. Having your friends take a 10-second clip out of context of this entire night is not sexual assault.
She's confused why this is even an issue at all, since James and Jack had never brought it up to her privately. This would not age the finest either. In the wake of
which is like another issue. Did they not bring it up to her privately?
Even an issue at all, since James and Jack had never brought it up to her privately.
I don't know if that's true. I think that I think that Jack might have said like we brought it up to her and she didn't really listen. I'm not 100% sure. It's one of those really fucked up conversations where it's like, you know, it's good. You have to establish boundaries, right? And this is like so fucked up. This is like the unfortunate reality of the world. There are people. Okay, let me try to personalize a little bit. So I had a friend. He was a gay friend, and he was a good friend. He's a nice guy, and we got comfortable together. And like I would take him out to eat and stuff. He was a friend. I worked. He didn't. And like from his perspective, that came off as like I was flirting with him. From my perspective, I was just friends with somebody, and like I just paid because like I didn't care. So he would get like close to me, and then like he would start doing shit that was like a little uncomfortable. And at first, I never really said anything. And then like he went for my genitals, and then I was like, I'll break your fucking hand, right? So that's kind of how that happened. Does it make it okay that he ever got that close to me? Absolutely. Or rather, did it make it okay for him to like touch me at all? No, of course not. Do I think he was a bad person and like was like, I'm gonna fucking try to like sexually harass this guy? No, I think that he misread the signs. And it's really fucked up because at the end of the day, I have to set like a firm boundary and saying like, hey, this is not right. And in the real world, sometimes affirming a boundary can get you hurt. Absolutely. Right? Most of the time though, like you do have to try to affirm a boundary. I don't know if there was a valid claim at the very least that if he tried to affirm a boundary that he would get hurt. Maybe that would happen. I kind of doubt it. I think, again, it's one of those things where he was in a scenario where he was pressured by, like, probably, well, absolutely his job to maintain a relationship. And so he didn't really feel comfortable super affirming a boundary on it, because he didn't want to, like, have his, you don't want to fall off, so to speak. I know that Sienna was, like, much more popular than him. And so, like, it's a lot of complicating shit. And I think it was part of his, like, real world interaction. I think part of it, like, his job. And at the end of it just sucks. I think it just kind of sucks. And I think that's something that would contribute to the potential trauma of this scenario, more than anything else, honestly, is not only was this probably upsetting to him, but now this is becoming fucking mainstream media about how this guy got, like, violated. And now everybody's speculating on it. Everybody's talking about it. Like, I couldn't imagine, like, what that would do to me. Like, that would fuck you up. You know what I mean? Fuck you up in ways where, like, people are talking about it. That's probably upsetting. And then, honestly, I don't know. It's just, like, really fucked up. It's just, like, it would probably really contribute to how fucked up it is. And then people, like, okay, for lack of a better term, over-affirming would happen. And I want you to, like, hear me out when I say this. I'm gonna, like, okay, so, like, you know how this is gonna be weird, but this is a very human process, right? You know how, like, when a baby falls and they start crying, and if you play into it, they cry more. But if you're like, you're okay, they stop. I'm not calling him a baby, but we've all been in a situation like that where, like, something happens to us, and if somebody's, like, really affirming, we, like, lay into the feeling a lot. And I'm not trying to invalidate the way that he feels, but that's part of it too. And it's like, fuck, you know what I mean? And so, like, it's so weird, but, like, people, especially people you trust, can almost make you feel, this is, like, such a hard thing to say, but people can, like, really, like let's say you go to a therapist, like, they can implant things that didn't necessarily happen into your head. It's almost like that, because I'm not trying to say that what he's feeling is invalid, because it's not. It's really fucked up. I'm trying to say that, like, if he was able to sit down and, like, deal with it with his immediate circle, that he would have been able to organize his thoughts better. That's what I'm trying to say. And then when you have people screaming at you from every side saying, like, it's really bad, it's really good, it's not this, it's not that, you get very confused and you get, like, pulled in different directions where you can't just, like, sit with yourself and, like, work through your potential trauma and your feelings in a comfortable, safe, closed off environment where you don't have people yelling at you and telling you how you're supposed to feel. That's what I'm trying to say. If I communicated that wrong, I'm sorry. It's just, like, I'm trying to figure out the way to explain this in, like, the most, like, real way without, I'm not trying to be, like, invalidating. That's what I'm, like, kind of trying to say here. And it's, like, really fucked up when you have everybody screaming at you and telling you how you're supposed to feel about something, you know?
This would not age the finest either.
And the fact that, like, his friends went forward with telling people and he didn't jump in on it suggests to me that they kind of took his, I guess, trauma, and they kind of almost weaponized it. They probably thought that it was like, we need to say something because she's a bad person. And he was probably like, I don't know how to feel yet. You know what I mean? And they jumped the gun on it. And I think that put him in another situation that would probably fucked him up pretty bad too.
Wake of Jack's formal statement published to his YouTube channel about half a year later, where he argues he had brought this kind of behavior up with her multiple times.
First of all, if they were so uncomfortable, why didn't they say anything to me?
The next morning, where she was like, I'm so sorry for doing that. I don't know what went through my head. I had to clarify again that I didn't like her that way. We were just friends. She said sorry. That was it. After that, these
thanks for the $10, brother.
Type of things kept happening.
This is also a TikTok that was made December 1st, not even 24 hours after the said sexual assault.
Good morning. I just want to say that.
Do you think Jack would have made this video with me if he felt uncomfortable from the night before?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. This is why it gets so fucked up. Like, it's so hard to figure out the specifics. Bro, seriously, like, a lot of people who have been violated by other people, they don't hate them. It's really fucked up. Like, it's like, I think that they would. Yeah.
The entire goal of this second statement is to make herself out to be the victim of Jack's friends intentionally manipulating the situation against her. But for what reason?
I do think that Jack's friends put him in a situation where he had to like immediately feel a certain way about something, and they were all screaming at him to feel a particular way, and he didn't get to be able to like explore it himself. I do feel like they did do that to him.
As far as I'm concerned, no one really had anything to gain from this being public. These are the biggest influencers on TikTok, all with promising careers ahead, making up
I think that it wasn't like about that. I think it was about, have you guys ever had like a friend that you liked a lot, that they were dating somebody that you thought was shitty, and like you wanted to convince the friend that, and they wouldn't listen to you, so you like almost try to insert yourself into it in a way, you know? That's kind of the way that I feel probably was more than, they were probably like, she's a shitty person to be with, and Jack's like, oh no, she's nice. And then they like try to show him, you know what I mean? That's why there's like just so many different things that are like conflicting. A lot of it's speculative, but you know, it's reminding me of like very real things that a lot of people go through. So
false allegations to smear one of the most popular members in their group would not be doing themselves any favors unless this is real. Sienna issued cease and desist letters regardless though, and went on to take a month-long break from social media. The situation died down once again, at least before Sienna made her long-awaited and critically acclaimed resurgence.
She comes back and posts this absolutely insane video.
An interpretive dance video for an essay.
It was a great dance. Just kidding.
I had to take a whole month off social media, but now I'm back. Hit him with the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse dance.
Yo! What is this, dude? How deaf and stupid do you have to be to dance to a song where the lyrics talk about kissing 100 guys when you have been accused of kissing your boyfriend when he was unconscious, which is assault?
I've tried writing this part of the video so many times, and I just still am truly speechless.
I decided to take a month off of social media due to the negativity surrounding my platform.
The most fucked up part about this is that she took a month off. But like, how long do you think that she was planning to do this dance? Like I know it's not funny, but it's like fucked up. Like, how long do you think that she was planning to? She's like, I'm gonna come back with a little razzmatazz. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that was like a big thing. I think that was part of it. I think she's like, okay, I'm done. What should I do? She takes a week off. I know what to do to come back. I'm gonna fucking dance. I'm gonna fucking dance, and people are gonna understand that's cool. That's what I need to do. I need to express myself. You could just dance without making a video out of it, because that was like an edited video. She paid somebody to edit that video.
It was honestly one of the most difficult times in my life for many reasons, but through struggle, I found clarity within myself.
She rented like a studio for this. You know what I mean? Yeah, she thought she killed it. Yeah, no, you're right. She thought she fucking killed it. She's like, this is perfect. Amazing. You know what I mean?
I don't have anything to add. This is literally the worst response to any controversy I have ever seen. Somehow, Sienna Mae's PR team figured that shooting a highly stylized interpretive dance to a song which contains the lyrics, "I did nothing wrong, I'm young," would be an appropriate response to SA allegations.
You know what? This is an interesting thing, though. This is a very interesting thing to talk about. Is like, why did they let her do this? Like, why did they let her to do this? Like, then this is a real question. Like, okay, let's say I had a scenario where my son or daughter was in this scenario, right? What do you think you would do if you were her parent? You'd probably sit down and be like, like, this is what I would do. I'd sit down and be like, you know, Sienna, Jack's your friend. I don't think that he's trying to fucking smear you. So, like, you might have done something that's fucked up. Maybe you would double down and be like, you're right. I don't know. But would you think that you'd be like, Sienna, girl, you know what you should do? Let's hire a team of people so that you could fucking dance on the way back. Like, that nobody would think that. Like, that's nobody's response. Who suggested this to her? And if nobody did, if she came up with it herself, why didn't you stop her? That's the real, why didn't you fucking stop her? It doesn't make sense.
God, I'd love to be a fly on a wall during that meeting. It's like getting up in the middle of your trial and doing the Squidward dance. I mean, if you go to Google tone deaf right now, a link to her video pops up. For God's sake, she starts off with a close-up shot of her push to start.
Even if I can only inspire one person, I will have done what I was put on this earth to do.
What would this inspire them to do? Is a real question. What would this inspire us to do? What would be the inspiration? I don't even know. I really don't know. What would I don't know.
Shallow, and doesn't even mention the reason she left social media in the first place. If she truly cared for Jack, like she keeps
she heavily victimized herself. If she didn't do that, people probably would have had a better reception of her.
Claiming this video would at the very least mention him instead of only making it about her. Sienna lists
silly TikTok dances
and
showing unedited photos of myself
as ways she inspires.
Oh, that's what it is. She's showing unedited pictures of herself so that people know that she's a real girl battling with her own body image issues, which she probably is, but like dealing with body image issues. I think everybody does at that age, but obviously she's not like the premier person that would be experiencing body image issues.
People before launching into the worst dance moves a human being is capable of. Needless to say, this video—
somebody choreographed that for her, by the way.
Convinced everyone she was innocent, Netflix put her back on the show, she gained over 4 million followers overnight, and everyone clapped. The reception was just what you'd expect, which is why she deleted it almost immediately after it came out. Although I guess—
did she really? I remember watching. I didn't know that she deleted it.
She forgot to take it down from Instagram. Regardless, it was still liked by over 200,000 people, and starting in July, Sienna went back to posting as normal. Literally, like nothing happened. In fact, she even continued to grow in popularity.
She probably should have just like took the break and then came back and then not responded and said anything, honestly, because when it comes to an allegation like this, like you really can't do public opinion bullshit piece on it. This is like a really like this is quite a conversation to have. So
during this time too, getting more brand deals, probably because she thanked them in the apology video.
And more than anything, I'm beyond thankful for my family, friends, partnerships, and supporters.
It's like she's banking on the support from the side of her audience who doesn't know about the allegations, or at least not the full extent of them. Either these people had never gotten the full picture or didn't believe the allegations.
I don't think that's true, man. Like this is a hot take, and I'm sorry, but I think a lot of older people looked at this and been like, "This is like shitty," but this is like so normal, and they didn't care. I'm not trying to be an asshole. I think that a lot of people have been in a situation like this, and so they weren't as super empathetic towards Jack Wright. I know it sounds horrible and shitty, but that's where a lot of people would probably think. They're like, "Okay, well, this is not great," but like, you know, this is a lot of this shit is teenagers. This situation is teenagers plus money, which is something that normally doesn't happen. Teenagers plus money and like public appeal. And so like, again, Jack Wright gets put basically, in my opinion, like pigeonholed in this weird scenario where like he has to play off a relationship with her because his job is telling him to. It's weird that nobody holds the job accountable, or like the paparazzi kind of a thing that were like the ones that encourage them to kiss. Nobody holds them accountable in any capacity. It's weird.
Clinging on to their favorite comfort creator and tuning out all the negativity. Because that's all it really was, right? An elaborate plot by Jack's friends to expose Sienna for something she didn't do and sink her career out of frivolous spite. A warped reality Sienna peddled to her followers up until January 2022, when Jack Wright broke his silence.
I wanted to share.
One thing that was weird, and I'm just going to say it because I remember, is that he teased this for a while. He kept teasing that it was kind of fucked up to say. But he would every once in a while would kind of like say something or make a TikTok that was like teasing his response to it. And it comes off a little performative. I think that it was more that he never really wanted to necessarily talk about it publicly, but he kind of got put into a situation where he was forced to talk about it at some point. But it did come off as a little bit bizarre, you know?
Share what I went through with Sienna and my side of the story.
On the 20th of January this year, almost 8 months since the allegations first came out, Jack Wright released his own official video response addressing Sienna directly, in a statement titled, "What Sienna Mae Did to Me."
This all started when my friend came out with a tweet, because he was worried about me. He actually witnessed a bunch of times what Sienna did to me.
Speaking on his experiences with Sienna, explaining how difficult it's been to open up, and that he didn't want his response video to be as aggressive as Sienna.
And it's like one of the fucked up things is he was like a lot of time. He mentioned that it happened constantly. It's just so fucked, man. It's like one of those things. Like, again, it just screams like a boundary issue of like Sienna, somebody who pushes boundaries, versus Jack, somebody who didn't like Jack and their friends who didn't realize it was as bad as it was for a long time. That's what it really screams to me.
Jack also confirms here that they were always clearly just friends and far from anything relationship-wise off camera.
I can't believe that. I'm not trying to be like, I just don't believe that. I don't think that that's honest. I don't think that that's sincere. I think that there's a mixture between Jack feeling possibly like if he said that he consented to some form of a relationship, that makes everything acceptable. And I also like, I think that part of it is he's looking back and he's interpreting. This is what we all do after we get out of a relationship. We look back and we interpret things the way that like we want to interpret them. A lot of times we're very subjectively speaking about shit, you know? So I don't believe that. It's an impossible thing. It cannot be true based on what we see where they're constantly teasing relationships. So I just don't believe that.
I just want to clarify that we both knew that we were just friends. She was seeing and talking to other guys in LA all the time, and I just thought of her as a good friend. We were making videos, we were making dance trends, we had fun. It was just strictly friends, and we both knew that.
But this is where I want to give a quick trigger warning. To anyone who may be put off by brief mentions of abuse, Jack does go a bit further into detail here, and even makes some new allegations that hadn't been brought up by his friends. So feel free to skip to the time code on screen if you aren't comfortable with such mentions.
So the first incident where Sienna crossed boundaries, it was after filming. We went into the room. I was just chilling on my phone on the bed, and she got naked, like completely naked, nothing on, and straddled me when I was literally just chilling on the bed. But I didn't know what to do in like the situation because it was just like random and weird. Quickly told her, Sienna, get off, we're just friends, stop. The next morning, where she was like, I'm so sorry for doing that. I don't know what went through my head. I had to clarify again that I didn't like her that way. We were just friends. She said sorry, that was it.
But that wasn't the end of it. Jack alludes to these incidents persisting, leading up to the video we all saw.
These type of things kept happening. She would do something and I would forgive her, and she said it wouldn't happen again, and we would go on making fun videos. After all those type of things kept on happening, the Hawaii incident happened.
Jack can confirm that he was in fact passed out, unconscious, almost the whole night, and that Sienna had taken advantage of him in his most vulnerable state. He's appreciative of his friends for stepping in, and that they captured what little evidence there was. Because after that occurred, the two would get into another dispute at a party, where she got jealous and mad that he was flirting with girls, even though he made it clear he wanted nothing romantic with her. She allegedly pulled him into a room.
My understanding is that like she made the claim that like, he did the same thing to him, which sounds like if you read, she had a response. I'm sure he gets into this. She makes a response. It's like a really long. Does he not get into it? Okay, he does. He gives like a where like, you know, and again, it's word for word, obviously at the situation, but where like he would do the same thing to her. They would try to make each other jealous, and it's like I tend to believe that. It makes sense to me that these two would be in some kind of a pseudo relationship. Like it's just the most commonsensical thing, you know?
Screamed at him, then tried to make out with him before he told her to leave. Two friends escorted her out of the party since she had also been causing additional problems that night, but resorted to jumping and rolling out of a moving vehicle to get back to Jack, who was hiding from Sienna in the house. According to him, her parents had to come get her.
So two friends wanted to take her home, and while the car was moving, she jumped out of the car, rolled, and said, I have to get back to Jack. So I ran back to the house, and I was like hiding from her, and I was just waiting for her parents to finally pick her up. Looking back now, I don't know why I stayed friends with her, stayed around her. I truly thought she was gonna change for some reason. I feel like she'd say she had so much love for me and she truly cared for me, and then the next night she would do something like that.
It got to a point that Sienna was fully aware of Jack's boundaries, yet continued to cross them, ranting to friends that Jack didn't like her back, despite the fact that she turned around to pursue other guys. All of this is alleged, I have to say. But things get even more intense when Jack alleges Sienna would break into his house in the middle of the night.
She would constantly come to my house, remember my door codes. It got to the point where I had to like start screaming at her, like get out of my house, because I was so sick of her just like.
Yeah, my understanding is that was the hype house he was living in. So she had all the codes to the house. That doesn't make it okay. It establishes another boundary issue. But the way that we're saying it, it's a little bit inaccurate. My understanding, like that was a hype house. The hype house loved Sienna Mae. I think they wanted her to be part of it, but she didn't want to be part of it. But she wanted to be like in proximity of it. And so like they liked her a lot because she brought them a lot of attention. That was the whole thing. And you know what else brought them attention is when they played up their relationship, which is why the hype house would constantly press this relationship, you know?
Breaking into my house. I would wake up and see her car just sitting outside at like 2 in the morning. She would break into my house, and when I was sound asleep, she'd come in my room, and I'd wake up to her hand in my pants. And it wasn't like the only time it happened too. I was so like used to it. I was so used to it that I don't know, it was just like normal for me that I didn't think there was such like a problem at all. Like part of me wants to blame myself for being nice and sticking around after so many times. But now I realize that I was stuck in this like manipulative cycle of her acting like she extremely cared about me, and then that night she would do stuff to me, and it was just so normal for me. I got used to it.
Painting a horrific picture of waking up in the middle of the night with Sienna in his room, her hand down his pants. Occurrences that were so frequent, he saw them as normal. There was one time he describes in which Sienna had broken in once again during the middle of the night and was kicked out of his room after touching his crotch area and attempting to make out with him. He finally locked her out of the room and fell asleep on the floor, in his own words.
Same old. I would say, Sienna, stop, go back to the couch, Sienna, stop. So I like locked the door, she was trying to get in, and I literally just slept on the floor, and she finally went to bed. It's like very awkward the next morning, and she'll say sorry, and I'm like, Sienna, this happens so many times. Like, you do not respect boundaries. You just.
You know, I honestly question how much alcohol was involved here, because you know they're not going to say it, but like it's very likely that actually I just really thought it's very likely that they would drink a lot, and then when she's probably a horrible drunk, because that situation where he was passed out. Why do you think he was passed out? Do you think he was passed out because he had a rough day? He was fucking drunk. Like we know that he was drunk, and we know that she was like. I mean, maybe we don't know. But they're all having parties, and they're all under the age, and they're having these parties, it seems like, sometimes at the fucking Hype House. And so it seems like we're removing evidence that would heavily incriminate the Hype House, right? Because we don't want to make them look bad. But like, I just simply don't believe that like they were very likely really drunk. Like if you're saying, I don't really know if I believe Sienna Mae jumped and rolled out of the car. What she had said is that she just got out of the car when it was stopped at a stop sign. But if you're going to make that argument that she got stopped, drop, and rolled, do you think somebody that was sober would do that? No. And the question is how much drinking is involved, and how much of this drinking is involved at the Hype House. And like, what, you know, were the real adults in the situation? Like, where were they? Right?
Oh my god.
Her family even planning their own trip to
Papa, do you think that there's an aspect of there being so little coverage of men being sexually assaulted by women that content creators are trying to play this up to make an example out of it? Maybe. I think that there's a lot of guys who identify in some capacity with girls being shitty to them, and I think a lot of the experience of a lot of guys is that girls that are shitty to them, probably just as shitty to them, which that's not what I'm saying about this scenario, but the general collective experience of men is like a girl being as shitty to them as they are to like them, but people don't like believe them because they're a girl. Kind of a thing, because like they're a girl, and girls generally come off as innocent and whatnot. And so a lot of guys are like, yeah, you know, they're I think that there's like a lot of people that are like, look, we have like a girl victim, and we don't want, or a girl, excuse me, we have like a girl aggressor, and we don't want her to like get away with it. Yeah, I think that there's probably some like projecting there, because like look at the Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation. Like she seems like she seems worse than Johnny Depp, but there are areas where Johnny Depp seems to be kind of shitty, where he would constantly get like drunk or take pills or even do cocaine or something, and then be shitty towards Amber Heard. And again, I think that she's worse than him, but like nobody wants to talk about that. Like when she was talking about like the potential sexual assault, I've never seen a collective group of people that said you were never sexually assaulted in my entire life. I've never the same people who are always saying like we need to believe all victims aren't even sitting back and like considering the idea that maybe Johnny Depp did like a shitty thing to Amber Heard. You know what I mean? And I think that there's a little bit of that in there. I think so. You know, I think that there's a little bit of a feeling of underrepresentation when it comes to like male victims, where like people are almost, I guess, overcompensating. You know, because this Johnny Depp thing is going crazy, and I think Amber Heard's like a piece of shit. But like, you know, you see Amber Heard with like some bruises on her face, and then people are like, "Oh, you faked it," or it's like, "Holy shit!" Like, you know, I understand this is the court of public appeal or opinion, but like, we could take a step back, we could breathe, and we could try to be objective. You know, I'm not saying Amber Heard's a victim here. I'm just saying that like people have like completely lost their shit. So it's true.
To Hawaii around the dates they knew Jack's family would be there, and his father.
Meanwhile, if you do have a guy that's like as toxic, like look at Marilyn Manson, it's fucking scum piece of shit. A lot of people were like, yeah, but you should know how he is, kind of a thing, and like they gave him like a more of a pass for having like horrible interaction. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. They're just removing the nuance from it.
When Sienna went back home before Jack, he didn't even want to go because he knew she'd find a way to be around him. To Jack, it felt like being caught in an endless cycle of Sienna always doing whatever she could to ignore boundaries and take advantage of him. This is the part where things went public thanks to Mason's tweet. Once the allegations were out there, Jack was met with similar testimonies from guys who had alleged
she made me really uncomfortable. I was drunk, sleeping on a couch, and woke up, told me saying, what the fuck, because she had just gone on top of me, was sleeping on me. Yeah, people basically saying the same thing. These were all very random. I don't know how much I believe all of these. They were basically saying that she would go to a party and then she would like try to kiss people. Maybe that happened, and it would show that like Sienna Mae thinks that she's like attractive enough, and she's like, you have to like me, so I'm gonna like violate your boundary. But it's also hard to say because like these are all random people. I don't even think he knew who they were. And like, I'm not saying that he lied, but like we don't, you know, I don't really know what they were. I don't know what these people were saying. You know, like, are these reputable people? Or, you know, you get a bunch of people in the DMs like affirming the way that you feel sometimes when you're a content creator. So they might have been like, yeah, I was at a party with Sienna. It's just hard to say, you know?
Had their own experiences with Sienna in LA. Jack ended his own testimony by saying the following.
We don't want her to hurt anybody else. We don't want anyone to go through that experience. I don't think I'll ever be the same person I was before Sienna. I don't know if she'll ever be sorry. I don't know if she'll ever learn from what she did or she'll ever admit to what she did. But I just don't want her to do this to other people.
Just days later, Sienna then put out another statement, definitely drafted by a legal team, which I will not be reading in full because it's just too long, but
I remember I read it in full.
I give you the highlights. Unfortunately, Jack Wright continues his campaign to slander Sienna Mae Gomez with further false accusations. His latest falsehoods in a highly edited video show that once again Jack is making a calculated action to hinder, hurt, and harm not only Sienna's reputation and livelihood, but her as an individual human being as well. Sienna unequivocally denies these accusations, as written in the statement. Other than spreading falsehoods about Sienna online, Jack has taken no action. There has been no police investigation, not even a police report to our knowledge. No charges, no private lawsuit, and no contact between Sienna and Jack or their respective legal teams.
I remember I read it, and then she was trying to recontextualize, in her opinion, and like, again, this is person versus person, like some of the interactions that they had together. It's something to read. I read it. You can look at my video on it. You know?
Many months.
I think the problem is that people don't like Sienna Mae for obvious reasons, because she's a shitty person, honestly, and so they don't really look at what she's saying as honest in any capacity. I think that's probably a big part of it.
There's always Sienna's desire and intention to handle this privately versus in the court of public opinion, which I just have to stop. Doesn't make sense because of the sheer amount of statements
it kind of does make sense. Oh, I guess what you're saying.
She's made, but regardless.
Well, she probably, like, there was a statement made against her, so she responded, and then she wanted to take it, because now she has to respond to, like, the court of public appeal, and then, you know, she would want to be like, okay, let's take this offline and, like, deal with this in private, because it's probably more nuanced than that. And then there's going to be, again, this is like a typical breakup situation where you're going to have two different people who are going to interpret things after they're not together anymore in the best way. The way that people tend to look at interactions, especially with people that they've cut off in the past, is they look at it based on the way that they feel rather than the way that what necessarily happened. Like, so for instance, what will happen is let's say that there's an event that you shared with this person, and you remember that how you felt in that event. And then after that event is over and you look back at it, you remember the way that you felt, and then you remember some of the details of the situation. So you reconstruct the situation around the way that you felt, plus the details that you remembered, even if those details aren't 100% accurate. That tends to be what happens a lot with people.
She would never want to sensationalize or degrade the seriousness of the situation. Sadly, Jack's blatant disregard for the truth has left us with no choice but to address these claims publicly. They go on to deny his claims that she broke into his house, and saying that Jack and his collaborators have attempted to utilize blatant slut-shaming culture to justify their fictitious claims and have effectively victimized a successful woman of color in a way that regrettably we have seen many times before, all in an effort to use her suffering as a catalyst for their own personal gain, which is just an amazing final sentence.
Yeah, they said something about her being a person of color.
Jack then coming out with his own counter-response to Sienna's response, reiterating that every word in his video is still the truth and that he hopes she continues to get the help she needs so this never happens.
This is an interesting response. I actually didn't see this response. So I truly appreciate Sienna's acknowledgement that she made mistakes and that she did not fully understand consent. It is a step in a positive direction. I believe Sienna is struggling to face the truth and the harmful, painful choices she made.
That every word
is actually a very insanely mature response from Jack Wright.
Word in his video is still the truth, and that he hopes she continues to get the help she needs so this never happens again.
Yeah, that reads. That's a very honestly incredibly
sentence. With Jack.
That's a very mature response from Jack Wright about like the nuances of sexual assault culture. That is what it says to me.
Then
separately to everybody who has reached out to me over the past few days, thank you. I'm deeply moved and support. Oh, no one deserves to. Okay, no one deserves to suffer. And then he links Rain. Okay.
Coming out with his own counter response to Sienna's response, reiterating that every word in his video is still the truth and that he hopes she continues to get the help she needs so this never happens again. From there, things went quiet on Sienna's end. She stopped being active for the first time since June, but Sienna,
I don't think that she's posted since like January.
Wouldn't be gone forever. In fact, it wasn't long before she reared her head yet again, responding to the heavy claims on a Barstool podcast. You can't make this up.
Wow, I didn't even know that happened.
On February 23rd, 2022, Sienna Mae returned to the public eye with an appearance on the BFFs podcast hosted by Dave Portnoy.
Wow, wait, is that like a real thing? Hold on. I didn't even, well, obviously it is. Let's see. The BFF podcast. Wow. I didn't even know that. I think I'm going to watch that.
Okay.
I think I have to watch that, but I'm going to watch it obviously after I'm done with this segment, and then because this, if it's a good faith interpretation from Dave Portnoy, I would understand, because from what I remember, Dave Portnoy had an issue where he would interact with girls that were younger, like 20, 22, legal age, where he enjoyed casual, very intense, rough sex with girls, and he seemed to be rather upfront about it, but they didn't understand the severity of what he liked until they were in the situation, and a lot of them didn't like the interaction, but it wouldn't be considered sexual assault. It was like a really harsh, it was like a scenario where they went into it and they didn't say no, stop, because they felt like afraid to say no, stop, because he was an older guy and like he liked it rough and they thought that he might hurt them, but like he wouldn't do that. I remember him talking about it, that's another conversation about sexual assault culture. I don't know if I'd consider what he did sexual assault, but you'd consider it a situation where like of not creating a situation where like not creating an atmosphere where somebody feels comfortable with saying no, and at the same time acknowledging an issue with hookup culture, where like you're with somebody that you might know, but you don't know them deeply enough to comfortably engage with intense sexual encounters like that. So I could see why he would look at that and kind of brush it off, if that's what he did, and we don't know yet.
CEO of Barstool Sports, who you may remember as a proud investor of the infamous crypto coin SafeMoon, which turned out to be a worthless pyramid scheme. Or you may recall the time he threatened to fire and sue his employees on the spot for wanting to unionize. Or you may know his abundant legal history. Whatever the case may be, Dave Portnoy, alongside his co-hosts, who are half his age, brought Sienna back on the program.
There's a lot of bad faith in Portnoy here, huh? I mean, I get it. It's fine. It's just funny.
After having her on just a year prior for an episode that definitely aged well. In this episode,
Sienna Mae secret.
Sienna doesn't even appear until the 30-minute mark. Everything before that is just
J. Cole, Travis Scott, Harriet Tubman.
Let me get a
Hey,
replay
I
of
don't
Harriet
even
Tubman.
see what's wrong with Harriet Tubman or Tubman.
You
or
said
whatever the
Harriet
hell it was.
Tubman.
What's the name? Tubman?
Yes.
Eventually, introduced alongside her lawyer and so-called forensic expert, Sienna already starts off on a bizarre note, as Dave is quick to point out at the beginning of the interview.
I came in and I was like, holy shit, am I in the right Zoom room?
Yeah.
What is going on?
So is this your choice or their choice to be like, we want to be on the call with you?
It's a little intimidating, I feel you, but no.
I don't think so. I don't know who the fuck is running her shit, but like from like I guess an optics perspective, she needs to fire her team, because if you're gonna come back for the first time, it's not a good idea to come back with like a Dave Portnoy as like your this will be the guy that'll help me look good. It just isn't. This isn't a reputable a person that would like understand the depths of like sexual assault culture in a way where it's like, yeah, I saw what happened and like it seems shitty, but like you know, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like when you look back now, even though you didn't intend to do this, do you feel like you can understand how you did that? That would have been a better space for her to go. I don't know where you could do that. That's like large as Dave Portnoy. I don't know if anybody would actually take that perspective in like a way that was like not super like anti. That's probably what it is. I don't think anybody would have brought her on, and like most people would have brought her on and like ridiculed her and kind of like just like dove into her, which probably wouldn't. I mean, yes, I could have done that myself. Yeah, I could have, but like obviously I have a small platform, so. But I don't think anybody like the first thought is like Ethan H3, but I don't think that he would have brought her on and had like a nuanced conversation with her. I don't think that I don't know if he's not capable of it, or more that like he would use it more as an opportunity to be like, hey, I'm a good person. You know what I mean?
I want to talk about my emotional state, and like I feel like what I want to touch on is like how I'm doing and like the emotional questions that I know you guys are gonna ask. But as for like the legal and like the so what's going on questions, that's for them to answer, because like I don't want to. I don't want to butcher anything. This is all like now it's serious, like.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So just ignore the question altogether then.
Well, that's in her defense from a legal perspective. Like she has to speak in a certain way now that it's become like very open and very like a legality type of a situation. Like, I mean, again, like it's just the way that things would have to work. If somebody could accuse you of sexual assault, obviously you're going to defend yourself. From a legal perspective, you obviously have to refrain from certain questions. You know what I mean?
There's been absolutely nothing by way of an investigation or any kind of legal proceeding filed. Honestly, at the end of the day, this is all just a video online.
Sienna's a wonderful, amazing.
Yeah, there's multiple reasons. Like the reason that he probably didn't push for anything is probably because he doesn't want to get her in trouble, so he's not going to like sue her. He probably was just upset. I think his friends kind of like pushed, like forced this situation online to have him come out and have to talk about it, and then so like he had to respond to it. I think he was kind of put in a situation where he was forced to respond to it, but he didn't want to get her in like any real legal trouble, you know?
Amazing and very likable lawyer comes out of the gate by clarifying at the beginning that there is no current legal proceeding going on. So it almost makes you wonder why there's even a lawyer present then. In fact, I do have to give props to Dave in this one instance for raising that very question.
If there hasn't been a legal issue, like, why are you here? She can't, like, there's nothing going on. She could theoretically answer for herself.
Because obviously there have been allegations made after so long of just going back and forth online, and it's all just social media talking back and forth. It was time to actually bring in some professionals who are.
It's probably one of those things where like if they're afraid that if she misspeaks on the scenario, then there might be a lawsuit that could be generated out of an inappropriate way that she talked about it, if that makes sense. To be absolutely honest with you, the potential threat of like a looming threat of a lawsuit might prevent her from actually publicly acknowledging the shitty thing that she did, if that makes sense. Because then it's like, oh my God, I might get sued. I have to double down. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but
we're going to talk about what's really real.
It got a weird response. It's not like she knows the situation any better than, say, Jack would. So I'm not sure why she's even giving herself so much credibility when there isn't a legal proceeding happening. To me, it just feels like an intimidation tactic. And as she said, she does feel like it'll quiet people down.
Do you think you bringing in the lawyer team and everything, do you think that's going to bring more attention to the situation? Or do you think that's to, like, kind of quiet people down? Or it's going to quiet people down?
I think it is going to quiet people down because it's just like, I literally have my lawyer sitting right here next to me telling you guys and whoever.
How does she have the money for a lawyer? How much could she possibly have made? And you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck?
I'm gonna see this now. That there's nothing being done. Like, I just am kind of like, all right, I'm gonna let my team like just talk about this one and kind of like take this one.
If that's the same team that told you to do the interpretive dance, I'm thinking you should probably be worried. Something interesting I noticed is when Sienna said this.
What was your initial reaction to Jack? Like, did you reach out to him? What did you say? What was that conversation? There was nothing?
So I haven't talked to him and literally since our last trip to Hawaii together. The last time I literally saw him was before I got on my flight, and we haven't talked since.
I cannot imagine why Sienna would not personally or privately reach out to Jack after the initial claims came out.
Probably like a legal thing. And I think that she made it like she was annoyed because he didn't like come out and like confirm or deny the allegations. Which, you know, probably because, again, we were talking about it, probably because he didn't necessarily want them to move forward, but then also because like he probably was upset with Sienna.
Even before his...
And she was probably like mad, be like, oh, he fucking basically is, you know, kind of supporting like a false allegation. And it's her perspective. I don't think it was a false allegation, but...
Statement, when it was just his friends making the claims, what could possibly compel Sienna, if she were truly innocent, to not reach out to Jack behind closed doors in an attempt to figure out what's going on? None of that makes sense to me. Sienna then goes on to weirdly admit that she had hopes of marrying Jack. When the two had never even gotten to the point of dating, he made it clear he did not want to be with her, and she still persisted, according to what's been claimed.
I like really, really loved him, and I was like, I'm gonna get married to this guy, like this is the one. Like I was so stoked on him.
I gotta watch that. I have to watch this conversation next.
He like was loving making the content because of like the views that it would get, and it would get a ton of views on my accounts too. I think we both kind of like saw that as a business transaction. I was personally, between us, like super into it, and he knew that I was, and I think he also knew that he wasn't. And that's where things got messy.
Did you realize he wasn't into it and you were still pursuing it, or you didn't realize?
We would kiss. Also, I just want to reiterate, we never had sex. We literally never did anything other than kiss.
Sienna likes to emphasize that the two had never had sex, as if this was ever something Jack claimed, and I'm surprised Sienna keeps harping on it, even with her lawyer sitting right next to her. She absolutely cannot, for some reason, answer Dave's question of, well, did you know he wasn't
into it and you were still pursuing it?
Instead, all of her answers are keeping the best interests of Sienna in mind, and how she was misled the entire time. Even though from what she's describing, it doesn't sound to me like he had any intentions of pursuing a relationship outside of the romantic TikToks.
It was interesting. Like my initial reaction when I saw his long videos, how cut up it was. It was like a jump cut every 2 seconds. But Bree brings up a good point. Like, why? Like,
why would he be posting 17-minute YouTube videos, like bawling his eyes out on the internet, if there was no truth behind what he was saying?
Look,
correct.
Here's the thing. I'm going to jump in again. Here's the thing. We can't speculate as to why he did it.
That was a very lawyer answer, you know.
Why he did it or what he thought of it. We can't speculate. But, you know, to Bree's point, they're nothing but statements. They're just statements.
After not knowing why Jack would cry in front of 20 million people in order to falsely slander Sienna's name, we reach the climax of the interview, where Sienna's forensic specialist breaks down the infamous video and analyzes it, basically writing everything off as too short to count as evidence in a court of law.
The National Center for Audio and Video Forensics was retained to perform an analysis on a cell phone video posted to social media.
Well, I mean, that's probably true, but...
I was asked if the video can be used as credible evidence of the accusations against Ms. Gomez. In short, no. The posted video is not credible evidence of these accusations. The video is not original. The video has been heavily altered. The video provides no context to
What the fuck? This is like this response is heavily altered. What the fuck is this?
events. The video is not credible evidence of the accusations against Ms. Gomez.
It probably isn't, to be honest with you.
I feel like that was a bad CSI video. I mean, my instinct is people are gonna be like, "That's a guilty video." It felt like a bad movie.
Actually, very funny. They shred this video in front of the guy who made it. But I have to say, it's hard to deny the video is short and doesn't show the events leading up to and after what is taking place.
No, it doesn't. There's not a lot of context. And again, it doesn't. I don't even know if it makes a claim that they're both fucking drunk there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of shit there. That would be a question that would be asked in courts. Like, were you guys drunk? And then you have to admit that you were like drunk and underage. And people are gonna be like, okay, you were drunk, and like that you. It's gonna be fucked up, but they're gonna discredit him for that because like, well, you were drunk, you shouldn't have done that. It's gonna be fucked up, which is really shitty to do, but.
Alleged assault. But this weird Fiverr-looking edit isn't exactly helping her image. Going on to accuse someone out there, maybe even Jack, of botting her, in addition to really emphasizing how much hate she's been getting online since these allegations broke, with absolutely no care for Jack or the same horrible messages I have to assume he's been getting from her fans.
It's something that we've actually become kind of used to and kind of shrug off. Like, of course there's botting going on. But I do want to make the point, it's illegal.
Are you insinuating that Jack did it? The botting?
Good question.
Yeah, we don't know who did it yet.
Wait, they're saying that he botted her to say kill herself? Okay.
I have to say the one thing
I doubt it. People are very mean on the internet, so if they think somebody's a predator, they're gonna be like, kill yourself. You know, that's pretty normal interaction.
Sienna may actually be good at is digging her grave even deeper. Because throughout this entire video, she comes across as nothing but inauthentic and unnecessarily intimidating.
To be honest with you, weird cut. I think that thing is that Sienna Mae, as a person, is just inauthentic. In all honesty, I think that Sienna Mae is an inauthentic person. And I think that that's part of the problem too, is that like you're never gonna watch like her response to the whole like you should eat fucking t-shirt. Inauthentic. She's an inauthentic person who filters all of her information through what she thinks will be the best way. She filters all of her information through a filter or through like a lens of what's gonna sound the best publicly, rather than like what is the right thing to say, if that makes sense.
It just isn't a good look. And even if we're going by the court of public opinion, one glance at the comment section would seem to indicate a loss on that front too.
He says, the last thing I would ever want to do is breach someone's boundaries, and for that I have become explicitly aware of the way I interact with others and will do better. I think she'll be more cautious going into the future because of this, but I still don't think she understands. Because someone talked to you about their boundaries.
It takes a lot to understand this situation, to be honest with you, for a young person. I wouldn't doubt it. I honestly feel that way.
Continue to break them. So it's not like boundaries had to come to your attention. Like, you knew. You just didn't do anything about it.
Sienna's responses throughout this entire situation have not been helping her at all. In my mind, everything she's tried to do here has backfired. The fact of the matter is, there are two conflicting narratives. One is that Sienna has been falsely accused of assault by a man who manipulated and led her on by intentionally giving her mixed signals, only to
not for nothing. I don't think that that's a reasonable, because you're extrapolating that claim from what she had said, where she would like kind of lead him on. But I feel like using the word manipulative is assigning a feeling to Sienna that she never really expressed. I don't remember her ever saying that she felt like Jack Wright was being a manipulative person. Maybe I need to watch that interview, but it seemed more like he would give her mixed signals. I don't think that he was trying to be manipulative. I think that he was just like distraught. I don't know if she's ever claimed that he was actively being manipulative. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm gonna have to watch that video, but I just don't think that makes her perspective seem so sinister, where I think her perspective is just like, I didn't do anything, like he was leading me on and that gave me like false signals or something, right?
To maliciously launch an attack on her reputation in the end, or that Sienna is not the person she claims so adamantly to be online, that her issues with boundaries far surpass the smaller extent to which she's described so fleetingly in interviews, that she repeatedly chose to take advantage of Jack Wright when he was at his most vulnerable, keeping him at arm's length no matter where they went due to her bizarre, ignorant, and selfish infatuation with a boy who clearly didn't reciprocate feelings. I personally believe the latter. After everything Jack has said and personally testified against, it's hard for me to look at this video as anything other than the truth, even if saying that could get me crucified by Sienna's legal team. However, the one truth that remains absolutely undisputed is that Sienna Mae has dug her own grave. Whether it be with weak video responses or a complete interpretive dance to the lyrics "I'm young and did nothing wrong," it doesn't matter how young and inexperienced Sienna was when she goes to such extreme lengths to keep Jack and her critics at bay, as to not damage the precious reputation.
Well, of course people are gonna, that's people's first response is gonna be to do that. I'm just saying.
She's built on a mountain of lies and sick dance moves.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I think that was a pretty good video. Part of it, I tend to like, I don't know if I have to disagree. listen, here's let me wrap it up. What I pretty much said from the beginning is like, listen, I think this is a situation where you have a girl with like boundary issues interacting with a guy. This is something that's probably more common than we like to think of, like a weird scenario where they were like in some kind of like a dating thing, but not. She wanted it. He didn't seem to, but he also seemed to be very heavily encouraged by the atmosphere around him, like people's public opinion, plus the hype house to maintain a relationship because she was a bigger content creator than I think most of the people in that hype house. And she brought them a views, money, and attention. And so Jack Wright was put in a situation where he felt like shitty and violated. I think that he was robbed of the ability to actually process this information correctly as well, because I think his friends who also, and his brother, who also didn't originally seem to understand that it was that bad, or as bad as it was, they knew it was uncomfortable, but they never like explicitly like set a hard boundary. I think that I think that there was an aspect there. I think that people moved forward and released this before Jack was like, you know, ever really sat down and was able to like feel it correctly, and they kind of encouraged him to come public and then like talk about these things in this weird situation. You know, ultimately, I don't think that Sienna Mae is a predator. I don't think that she's a great person. I don't really care if she has a platform or not. But I think that there's basically like a nuanced conversation to have here about like the typical aspect of rape culture in America, and that is scenarios where somebody puts somebody in a situation where they violate them without knowing that they've done that. That's mostly what I think. I know that doesn't generally align with the way people talk about this. I know a lot of people don't like hearing stuff like that because they want like 100% affirming in one way or the other. But just like everybody else, when you have an interaction, and this is going to come down to their way that they talk about the situation is going to be in a way that's as in defense of how they felt at the time as possible. So honestly, whether you like it or not, there's a truth in there in the middle. It's probably aligns closer to the way that Jack Wright felt, but they both had interactions with each other. They both had feelings on those interactions, and now they're recalling those interactions, and they're going to advocate for their position the best that they can. So we're never going to get like a perfect representation of what happened, because they're going to like work off of more how they felt about it, rather than like what necessarily actually happened. And part of that's because they just forgot. They were probably a series of instances that, you know, made them feel a particular way, both sides, and they're going to hold on to those feelings. And they're also both, especially Sienna, seems to be very ignorant of other people's feelings. So thank you so much for watching, guys. And another special shout out to all my Patreon and Twitch subs. If you'd like to support this channel further than you already have by just watching the video alone, go down to the links below where you can sub on my Patreon, which will allow you to get your name on this beautiful black wall. Or you can go to the Twitch page and you can actually use a free Amazon Prime sub, if you have Amazon Prime, to subscribe. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.